At a grimy seaport auction where broken animals are sold for scraps, a grizzled pirate captain spots a dying horse. The mare stands skeletal and trembling, her once proud spirit crushed by years of abuse. Auction bidders laugh and point, expecting the weathered seafarer to pass her by like all the others. The auctioneer's hammer hovers, ready to send her to the slaughter yards for a handful of coins. But Captain Blackwood steps forward, his scarred hands steady, his voice cutting through the mockery with simple words that silence the crowd. "You're coming with me." What begins as an act of defiance against a cruel world becomes something far more powerful. This dying horse and this hardened pirate are about to forge a bond that will change both their fates forever. But can two broken souls really save each other? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The salt-crusted port of Tortuga awakens before dawn as it has for countless years. Weathered docks creak under the weight of morning cargo, while merchants hawk their wares to sailors stumbling from taverns with pockets heavy from successful raids. The air carries the familiar blend of brine, rum, and unwashed bodies that marks every pirate haven worth its reputation. Captain Samuel Blackwood stands at the stern of his ship, the Retribution, watching the sun paint the Caribbean waters in shades of amber and gold. At 57, his face bears the deep lines carved by decades of squinting against ocean spray and tropical sun. His hands, steady despite their many scars, grip a pewter mug that has long since grown cold. The grey threading through his black beard speaks of wisdom earned through survival, not comfort. The pewter mug sits heavy in his palm, its surface dented and tarnished from years of faithful service. Every morning for the past 15 years, it has held his first cup of coffee, a ritual that anchors his dangerous life in something constant and reliable. The vessel bears scratches from countless storms, yet it endures, much like the man who holds it. The Retribution herself shows similar signs of endurance. Her hull, once pristine mahogany, now displays patches of repair work like badges of honor. Every plank tells a story of storms weathered, battles fought, and treasures claimed. She remains seaworthy through Blackwood's meticulous care, a floating testament to the principle that respect and maintenance matter more than youth or beauty. Below deck, his crew begins their morning ritual. Thomas Gray, his first mate of 20 years, emerges from the galley, carrying a steaming bowl of porridge. Gray's weathered face splits into a familiar grin as he approaches his captain. "Morning, Samuel. Sleep well in your cabin while the rest of us listen to Jenkins snore like a wounded whale." Blackwood accepts the bowl with a nod. "Someone has to maintain dignity on this floating circus, Thomas. Can't have the entire crew looking like they've been dragged behind the ship." Their banter carries the comfort of old friends who have shared countless dawns like this one. Gray leans against the rail, his own coffee warming his hands. "What's the plan for today?" "The men are getting restless. It's been 3 weeks since our last proper take." "Patience serves us better than desperation," Blackwood replies, stirring his porridge thoughtfully. "I've heard whispers about a Spanish merchant vessel passing through these waters next week. Worth waiting for the right opportunity rather than settling for scraps." Gray nods, understanding the wisdom in his captain's words. They have both seen crews destroyed by impatience, rushing into poorly planned raids that ended in cannon fire and watery graves. The Retribution's reputation rests not on reckless bravery, but on calculated strikes that minimize risk while maximizing reward. The morning progresses with familiar efficiency. Crew members emerge from their hammocks, each man knowing his duties without instruction. Sails are inspected, ropes checked, weapons cleaned and oiled. The ship operates like a well-tuned instrument, each component essential to the harmony of the whole. Young Billy Hawkins, barely 20 and still eager to prove himself, approaches the captain with questions about navigation. Blackwood patiently explains the relationship between wind patterns and current, sharing knowledge accumulated through decades of reading the sea's moods. The younger pirates often seek such guidance, recognizing that survival depends more on wisdom than on sword skills. The ocean teaches humility, Blackwood tells Billy, pointing toward the horizon where storm clouds gather in the distance. She'll reward respect and destroy arrogance without hesitation. Remember that, and you might live long enough to captain your own vessel someday. As midday approaches, Blackwood announces their destination, the livestock auction at Port Royal. The crew exchanges puzzled glances. Their captain's decisions usually involve targets laden with gold or silver, not barnyard animals. Gray raises an eyebrow, but holds his questions, trusting in Blackwood's judgment despite this unusual directive. The Retribution cuts through the waves with practiced grace, her sails full of favorable wind. The journey to Port Royal will take most of the day, giving Blackwood time to contemplate his motivations. He cannot fully explain the impulse that drives him toward the auction. Perhaps it stems from something deeper, something he has not examined in many years. He takes another sip from his pewter mug, now refilled with fresh coffee, and watches the coastline drift past. Whatever awaits him at Port Royal, he senses it will be more significant than a simple livestock purchase. The feeling sits in his chest like a weight, both uncomfortable and strangely welcome. The journey to Port Royal stretches before them like a ribbon of blue glass, giving Blackwood time to drift into memories he rarely allows himself to visit. In the privacy of his cabin that evening, he opens a small wooden chest hidden beneath loose floorboards. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lies a tarnished silver locket that has not seen daylight in over 2 decades. His calloused fingers work the delicate clasp with surprising gentleness. The locket springs open to reveal a miniature painting, its colors faded but still recognizable. The image shows a modest stone farmhouse surrounded by rolling green hills, with a wooden stable visible to one side. Horses graze peacefully in the foreground, their coats gleaming in painted sunlight. This was home once. Devon countryside where Samuel Blackwood learned to walk among gentle giants who responded to kindness rather than force. His father, Edmund Blackwood, had possessed a rare gift with horses. The animals sensed his calm nature and steady hands, approaching him with trust that seemed almost magical to young Samuel's eyes. "Patience, boy," his father would say, holding out his palm for a mare to sniff. "Let them come to you. Force creates fear, and fear destroys everything worth having." Samuel had absorbed those lessons without realizing their importance. He learned to read the subtle signs of equine communication, the flick of an ear indicating attention, the lowering of a head showing submission, the gentle nickering that meant welcome. Under his father's guidance, he developed hands that could soothe the most skittish colt and eyes that could spot lameness before it became crippling. The stable had been his sanctuary. While other boys his age learned trades in town or helped with crops, Samuel preferred the company of horses. Each animal possessed distinct personality and preferences. Old Magnus, a retired warhorse, demanded respect and space, but offered loyalty once earned. Belle, a spirited mare, required gentle patience and consistent boundaries. The foals taught him about playfulness and trust, approaching without reservation because they had never learned to fear human touch. Those memories feel like another man's life now. The path that led him from Devon pastures to Caribbean waters remains painful to trace. The drought that destroyed 3 consecutive harvests, his father's increasing desperation as debts mounted and creditors circled like vultures. The morning Samuel woke to find his father hanging in the very stable where they had shared so many peaceful moments. He had been 18 then, old enough to understand that the farm would be sold to pay debts, too young to prevent the disaster that claimed everything he loved. The horses were auctioned first, led away by strangers who saw only livestock, not the individual personalities Samuel knew so well. He watched Magnus walk away with his head held high, dignity intact, despite circumstances beyond his control. The locket holds all that remains of that life. Everything else was swept away by necessity and the hard choices that survival demanded. He joined a merchant crew bound for the Indies, seeking distance from memories that threatened to drown him in grief. Years passed. The merchant service led to privateering during the war. Privateering led to outright piracy when peace made his skills unwelcome in legitimate circles. Each step away from that Devon farmhouse made sense at the time. Each compromise with his original principles seemed necessary for survival. Yet something essential was lost in the transformation from gentle horse handler to feared pirate captive. The man who could calm frightened animals with a touch became someone who inspired fear in others through reputation and sword skill. The Locket's painted horses seemed to watch him across the decades, reminding him of what he once was and perhaps what he might have remained under different circumstances. Their peaceful existence in that miniature world represents everything he abandoned in pursuit of survival and success. He closes the locket carefully, wrapping it again in oiled cloth before returning it to its hiding place. The wooden chest settles back beneath the floorboards, taking the memories with it. But something has stirred in his chest, a recognition that tomorrow's auction might offer more than simple commerce. Outside his cabin window, the Caribbean night spreads across the waters like black velvet studded with stars. The Retribution moves steadily through calm seas toward whatever destiny awaits at Port Royal. Blackwood settles into his hammock, but sleep comes slowly. Dreams of green English pastures and gentle horses fill the hours until dawn, carrying him back to a time when his hands brought comfort instead of fear. Port Royal bustles with activity as the Retribution slides into harbor, her crew expertly navigating between merchant vessels and fishing boats that crowd the busy waterway. The notorious pirate haven has grown prosperous through its willingness to welcome any sailor with coin to spend, regardless of how that coin was acquired. Merchants, pirates, and naval officers mingle in an uneasy truce built on mutual greed and necessity. The livestock auction takes place in a dusty yard behind the main market, where the smell of commerce mingles with less pleasant odors. Animals of every description crowd wooden pens, cattle destined for butcher shops, horses broken by overwork, goats whose milk has dried up, chickens too old for laying eggs. The air carries the scent of manure, fear, and desperation that seems to cling to places where lives are reduced to monetary value. At the center of this chaos stands the auction block itself, a weathered wooden platform, worn smooth by countless boots and stained dark by years of use. The structure bears the weight of history in its scarred surface. Initials carved by board handlers mark its sides, while iron rings embedded in the wood tell silent stories of the creatures who have stood here awaiting judgment. The auctioneer, Cornelius Wickham, surveys his domain from atop the platform. A portly man with a voice trained to carry over crowd noise, he commands attention through sheer volume and theatrical gestures. His wooden gavel, worn smooth by constant use, rests in his meaty palm like a scepter of authority. Each strike of that implement determines fate with finality that brooks no appeal. "Gentlemen, step forward and witness fine specimens today," Wickham bellows, his voice echoing off the surrounding buildings. "Strong oxen for your plantations, sturdy mules for hauling cargo, and horses suitable for riding or pulling carts." Blackwood's crew follows him through the crowd, still uncertain about their purpose here. The captain's eyes scan the various animals with an expression they cannot interpret. His weathered face remains neutral, revealing nothing of the emotions stirring within him. Gray stays close, ready to intervene if his captain's unusual behavior leads to trouble. Bidding proceeds briskly for the healthier animals. Plantation owners compete for strong cattle, their voices rising as prices climb. Merchants seek reliable transportation for their goods. Examining teeth and checking legs with practiced efficiency, the crowd's energy remains high as valuable livestock changes hands for substantial sums, accompanied by the rhythmic pounding of Wickham's gavel, confirming each sale, sold to Mr. Harrison for £15. Wickham announces, bringing his gavel down with satisfaction. "A fine bull, sir. He'll serve you well." But as the auction continues, the quality declines noticeably. Older, sicker, more damaged animals take their turn on the weathered platform. The crowd's enthusiasm wanes, replaced by calculating assessments of meat weight versus purchase price. These creatures no longer serve practical purposes. They represent only their final value in pounds of flesh. The mood grows crueler as desperation becomes apparent in the remaining livestock. Buyers joke about glue factories and dog meat, their laughter harsh in the afternoon heat. The wooden platform beneath their feet seems to absorb the callousness, becoming darker and more ominous as shadows lengthen. "What have we here?" Wickham asks with forced cheerfulness as handlers lead forward a limping ox. Still has some work left in him, strong shoulders for the plough, but even his practiced salesmanship cannot disguise the animal's obvious infirmity. The ox's labored breathing and clouded eyes speak of suffering that no amount of rhetorical flourish can overcome. The gavel falls at a pittance, sealing the creature's fate with 3 sharp raps against the scarred wood. Blackwood feels something stir in his chest, an emotion he has not experienced in many years. The casual cruelty surrounding him strikes deeper than he expected. These broken creatures remind him of something precious he lost long ago, though he cannot name exactly what that might be. The wooden platform seems to mock the very concept of dignity, reducing living beings to their basest commercial value. The crowd's laughter at suffering becomes increasingly difficult to bear. Each strike of the auctioneer's gavel sounds like a judgment on humanity itself. Blackwood's hands clench unconsciously as he witnesses the systematic degradation of creatures who deserve better than this dusty yard and its heartless calculations. The sun beats down mercilessly, adding physical discomfort to the emotional weight pressing on his shoulders. Sweat beads on his forehead, though whether from heat or internal turmoil, he cannot say. The wooden auction block stands before him like an altar to commerce, waiting for the next sacrifice to be led forward and reduced to coin. Then she appears, and the world shifts on its axis. The mare enters the auction ring, supported by 2 handlers, her legs barely able to support her emaciated frame. The rough rope halter around her neck has worn a permanent groove in her flesh, the fibers darkened with old blood and newer sweat. This simple collar tells a story of years spent struggling against restraint, of spirits slowly ground down by relentless pressure and cruel hands. Her ribs show clearly through dull, patchy coat that once might have gleamed like polished copper. Scars crisscross her flanks, evidence of whips and spurs applied without mercy or skill. Her head hangs low, neck stretched by exhaustion and defeat, but it is her eyes that capture Blackwood's attention completely. Once, those eyes held fire. Intelligence gleams there still, buried beneath layers of resignation and pain. She looks out at the jeering crowd with the gaze of a creature who has learned that hope leads only to disappointment, that trust results in betrayal. Yet something flickers in those dark depths, a spark not entirely extinguished despite everything she has endured. The crowd's reaction is immediate and harsh. Laughter ripples through the buyers as they recognize the futility of bidding on such a hopeless specimen. Comments fly about glue factories and dog meat, each observation more callous than the last. "Look at those ribs, you could play music on them. What's the point of bringing her here? Save everyone the trouble and put her down in the pen. I've seen corpses in better condition." The mare's ears twitch at the harsh sounds, but she lacks the energy to lift her head in response. The rope halter shifts as she sways, its rough fibers catching what little light filters through the dust-heavy airs. The collar seems to grow heavier with each passing moment, weighing her down like an anchor, dragging her toward the inevitable. Wickham surveys the pathetic figure before him, his practiced showmanship faltering for the first time today. Even his considerable talents cannot transform this broken creature into something desirable. The wooden gavel feels heavier in his hand as he prepares to dispose of what amounts to a public embarrassment. "What do we have here?" he asks with forced cheerfulness, clearly recognizing that this animal represents a waste of everyone's time. A fine mare, still has some work left in her. "Do I hear 5 shillings? Silence greets his opening bid. The mare sways on her feet, her breathing labored and shallow. The rope halter pulls against her neck as her head drops lower, the coarse fibers cutting deeper into already wounded flesh. Her legs tremble with the effort of remaining upright. "Do I hear 3 shillings? Wickham tries again, his voice losing enthusiasm. 2 shillings. Surely someone needs dog food. More laughter erupts from the crowd. Someone calls out a joke about using the horse for target practice. Another suggests she might collapse before leaving the ring, saving everyone the trouble of transportation. The cruel words wash over the mare like physical blows, each comment driving her deeper into despair. Blackwood watches this display with growing revulsion. The memory of his father's gentle hands working with frightened horses rises unbidden in his mind. Edmund Blackwood would have seen past the mare's condition to the noble spirit trapped within. He would have recognized the intelligence still burning in those defeated eyes. The mare's legs begin to buckle. She sinks toward the ground, her strength finally failing after holding out through sheer determination. The rope halter tightens around her neck as the handlers grab it, trying to force her upright, but she has reached the limit of her endurance. The coarse fibers dig deeper into her flesh, drawing fresh blood that mingles with old stains. Her fall seems inevitable, and with it her immediate death in this dusty ring surrounded by jeering spectators. The rope collar that has bound her for so long threatens to become her final burden, the weight that drags her down into darkness. In this moment, Samuel Blackwood makes a decision that will change the course of both their lives. The memory of his father's voice echoes in his mind. Force creates fear, and fear destroys everything worth having. But kindness, his father had taught him, could work miracles. He steps forward, his voice cutting through the crowd's mockery with quiet authority that silences the cruel laughter. 10 shillings. The laughter stops abruptly. All eyes turn toward the grizzled pirate captain, whose reputation precedes him throughout the Caribbean. Wickham blinks in surprise, uncertain he heard correctly. The sudden silence feels heavy, pregnant with confusion and disbelief. "Did you say 10 shillings, sir?" "I did." Blackwood's voice carries the weight of absolute certainty. He moves closer to the ring, his weathered hand reaching into his leather pouch. The 10 silver shillings catch the afternoon light as he counts them out, each coin gleaming despite years of circulation. These particular pieces have traveled with him through countless adventures, bearing the wear marks of his fingers and the tarnish of salt spray. The crowd murmurs in confusion. Pirates are known for practical decisions based on profit and necessity. This purchase makes no sense from any rational perspective. The horse cannot work, cannot breed, cannot even survive transportation without immediate care. Yet here stands Captain Blackwood, methodically counting out coins for a creature worth less than her weight in dog meat. Gray pushes through the crowd, his face creased with worry. "Samuel, what are you doing? That animal won't last the journey back to Tortuga." Blackwood's fingers close around the silver coins, their familiar weight solid and reassuring in his palm. Each piece represents hours of risk, battles fought, and treasures won. 10 shillings could buy decent provisions for a week, quality rope for the ship's rigging, or ammunition for their cannons. Instead, these coins will purchase something far less tangible, but infinitely more valuable. "Are you certain, Captain?" Wickham asks, his voice betraying genuine concern. "This animal is quite clearly past any useful purpose. These coins could buy you a proper horse, one that might actually serve you well." The mare lifts her head slightly, meeting Blackwood's gaze with eyes that flicker with the faintest spark of recognition. Perhaps she senses something different in this weathered man, some quality that separates him from the crowd that has been laughing at her suffering. Her nostrils flare as she catches his scent, reading the complex story written in his presence. Other potential buyers shuffle nervously, uncertain whether to laugh or remain silent. Captain Blackwood's reputation for swift justice toward those who mock him keeps their comments subdued. The silver coins in his hand represent more than money. They symbolize a choice that defies everything these men understand about practical commerce. Young Billy Hawkins watches from behind the other crew members, his eyes wide with amazement. In all his months aboard the Retribution, he has never seen his captain make such an inexplicable decision. The silver shillings gleam in the dusty air like stars fallen to earth, each one precious enough to feed a man for days. The coins are real, Blackwood states simply, extending his hand toward Wickham. 10 shillings for the horse. Wickham hesitates, his business instincts warring with genuine human concern. He has conducted thousands of auctions, witnessed every form of commerce imaginable, but this transaction feels different. The silver pieces in Blackwood's weathered palm represent more than payment. They symbolize rescue, though from what exactly remains unclear. The mare's legs buckle again, but this time Blackwood steps forward quickly. His hands, scarred by decades of rope work and sword fighting, reach out with surprising gentleness. The same fingers that have gripped cutlass hilts and ship's wheels now offer comfort to a creature that has known only cruelty. "Easy, girl," he murmurs, his voice carrying the same tone his father once used in Devon stables. "You're coming with me." The words ring out across the silent auction yard, carrying weight beyond their simple meaning. They represent promise, protection, and the first kindness this mare has experienced in years. The silver coins transfer from Blackwood's palm to Wickham's, sealing a transaction that transcends mere commerce. Wickham's gavel falls 3 times, its wooden strikes echoing through the suddenly quiet space. "Sold to Captain Blackwood for 10 shillings. His voice carries none of its usual theatrical flair. Instead, it bears the solemnity of a man witnessing something he cannot fully understand. The crew exchanges glances, their confusion evident, but their loyalty absolute. If their captain sees value where others see only waste, they will support his decision without question. Gray steps forward, his practical mind already working on the logistics of getting a dying horse aboard their ship. The mare's breathing steadies slightly as Blackwood's presence registers fully. The silver coins have changed hands, but something far more significant has occurred. A bond forms in that dusty ring, fragile as spun glass but potentially strong as steel cables. 2 broken souls have found each other in a place designed to reduce life to its lowest common denominator. Getting the mare aboard the Retribution proves more challenging than any treasure raid Blackwood has ever attempted. The dying horse cannot walk the gangplank under her own power, forcing the crew to improvise a solution that tests both their ingenuity and their patience. Gray organizes the men with his usual efficiency, though his muttered complaints about rescuing livestock instead of plundering gold carry clearly across the dock. They fashion a makeshift sling from spare sailcloth and rigging rope, working with the careful precision normally reserved for handling delicate cargo. The mare's eyes widen with fresh terror as the canvas cradle envelops her weakened frame, but Blackwood's steady presence at her head provides the only comfort she has known in years. "Easy, girl," he murmurs, his scarred hands stroking her neck with surprising gentleness. "We're not going to hurt you, just getting you somewhere safe." The wooden bucket they use to haul water from the harbor for her becomes the most important vessel on the ship. Billy Hawkins carries it with religious devotion, sloshing precious fresh water with each step as he navigates the crowded deck. The simple container, normally used for swabbing decks or dousing cooking fires, now serves as lifeline for a creature hanging by the thinnest thread of existence. Jenkins, the ship's cook, grumbles about wasting good water on a walking corpse, but even he cannot deny the transformation that begins almost immediately. The mare drinks with desperate gratitude, each swallow accompanied by a soft wicker of appreciation that touches something deep in the crew's collective heart. The journey back to Tortuga unfolds like a careful dance between hope and despair. Blackwood establishes himself as the mare's primary caretaker, spending hours beside her makeshift stall fashioned from crates and canvas in the ship's hold. The wooden bucket becomes his constant companion, ferrying water from the ship's precious supply to lips that had known too much thirst. Hour by hour, the bucket makes its journey from barrel to mare, each trip a small victory against the forces that seek to claim her life. Blackwood watches anxiously as she drinks, measuring her progress in teaspoons of liquid and the gradual clearing of her clouded eyes. The simple act of providing water becomes an act of faith, a belief that kindness can triumph over cruelty. Gray approaches on the 2nd day, carrying his own concerns along with a bowl of thin gruel, prepared specially for their unusual passenger. His weathered face shows the strain of watching his captain pour time and resources into what seems like a hopeless cause. "Samuel, the men are talking," They don't understand why we're risking our water supplies for an animal that might not survive the week. Blackwood looks up from where he kneels beside the mare, the wooden bucket cradled in his hands like a sacred vessel. Tell me, Thomas, when did we become so concerned with practical outcomes that we forgot about doing what's right? The question hangs in the salt-tinged air between them. Gray has no easy answer, recognizing the truth in his captain's words. They have spent years taking what they wanted from others, justifying their actions through the harsh logic of survival. Perhaps this act of mercy represents something they have lost along the way. The mare's condition improves incrementally but noticeably. Her breathing steadies, her eyes brighten slightly, and she begins to show interest in the soft hay Billy procures from their supply. Each small improvement feels like a miracle, proof that the bucket's simple offerings of water can indeed work magic when combined with patience and care. Other crew members begin taking turns with the bucket duty, though none admit to the emotional investment growing in their heart. Tough sailors who have faced storms and battles find themselves speaking softly to the recovering horse, offering gentle words along with the life-giving water. The wooden bucket bears new importance with each passing day. Its scarred surface reflects the mare's own battle scars, both showing signs of hard use but refusing to surrender their essential purpose. Like the horse it serves, the bucket continues functioning despite its worn appearance, proving that value lies deeper than surface beauty. As Tortuga's familiar coastline appears on the horizon, Blackwood realizes that something fundamental has shifted during this voyage. The act of nurturing life, instead of taking it, has awakened parts of himself he thought permanently lost. The wooden bucket in his hands represents more than a tool. It symbolizes the possibility of redemption through simple acts of kindness. The mare lifts her head as the ship's motion changes, sensing their approach to harbor. For the first time since the auction, she shows curiosity about her surroundings rather than resignation to fate. The bucket continues its faithful service, carrying hope along with water. Establishing a makeshift stable at Tortuga proves easier than Blackwood anticipated. The crew works together to construct a shelter using salvaged timber and canvas, creating a space that offers protection from the Caribbean sun and frequent tropical rains. Within this humble structure, the mare begins her slow journey back to life under Blackwood's patient care. The soft brush becomes his most treasured tool, its bristles worn smooth by years of use on ship equipment, but gentle enough for the mare's sensitive skin. Originally designed for cleaning weapons and polishing brass fittings, the brush finds new purpose in the careful grooming that helps restore dignity along with health. Each morning, Blackwood arrives at the stable with the brush in hand, approaching the mare with the same reverence his father once showed their Devon horses. The ritual begins slowly, allowing her to grow accustomed to his presence before making physical contact. Her initial flinching gradually gives way to acceptance, then something approaching anticipation. "There's a good girl," he murmurs, working the brush through her patchy coat with infinite patience. "Let's see what's hiding under all this neglect." The transformation proves remarkable. As weeks pass, the gentle brushing reveals hints of the mare's original coloring. Beneath the dull, damaged hair, traces of rich chestnut begin to emerge. Each stroke of the brush carries away another layer of her painful past, exposing healthier coat underneath. The simple implement becomes an instrument of resurrection, bringing beauty back to life through consistent, gentle care. The crew watches this daily ritual with growing fascination. Hardened sailors who have witnessed every form of violence find themselves mesmerized by the quiet patience their captain displays. Gray often pauses in his duties to observe Blackwood working with the brush, noting how the gentle motions seem to calm both horse and man. "I haven't seen him this peaceful in years," Gray confides to Billy Hawkins one afternoon. "It's like he's found something he didn't know he was looking for." The mare's physical improvement becomes evident to everyone. Her ribs no longer show through her coat, and muscle begins to develop on her frame as proper nutrition and care take effect. But more importantly, her spirit returns gradually. The dull resignation in her eyes brightens into something approaching curiosity, then cautious trust. Local townspeople begin stopping by the makeshift stable, drawn by curiosity about the pirate captain who spends his mornings grooming a rescued horse. Their initial skepticism transforms into grudging respect as they witness the mare's remarkable recovery. Even the most hardened residents of Tortuga find something touching in this display of gentle care. Maria Santos, who runs the tavern near the harbor, brings occasional treats for the mare. "My grandmother always said you can judge a man's character by how he treats animals," she tells Blackwood one afternoon, watching him work the brush through the mare's increasingly lustrous coat. The daily grooming sessions become meditation for both captain and horse. The rhythmic motion of the brush creates a peaceful space where neither past trauma nor future uncertainty can intrude. In these moments, only kindness exists, expressed through gentle strokes that gradually erase the physical and emotional scars of abuse. The mare begins responding to Blackwood's voice, her ears pricking forward when he approaches. She learns to lower her head for grooming, offering trust that represents a monumental victory over the fear that once defined her existence. Each session with the brush strengthens their growing bond, creating understanding that transcends the barriers between species. Billy Hawkins takes particular interest in these grooming lessons, recognizing parallels to his own relationship with the captain. Just as the brush removes surface damage to reveal the mare's true beauty, Blackwood's patient teaching has helped Billy develop from clumsy apprentice into capable sailor. "Consistency matters more than force," Blackwood explains, demonstrating proper brushing technique. "Animals respond to patterns they can trust." Same principle applies to leading men, though most captains never learn that lesson. The soft brush continues its transformative work day after day, each stroke a small act of faith in the possibility of healing. What began as simple grooming evolves into something deeper, a daily affirmation that gentleness can triumph over cruelty, that patience can undo years of damage, and that true strength lies in the ability to nurture rather than destroy. As the mare's coat grows healthier and her spirit brightens, the brush becomes a symbol of hope. Realized, its worn bristles have witnessed the miracle of redemption, proving that even the most damaged souls can be restored through consistent, loving care. The mare's continued recovery brings unexpected challenges, particularly the question of what to call her. For weeks, Blackwood has simply referred to her as Girl or the Mare, but as her personality emerges more fully, the need for a proper name becomes apparent. He finds himself struggling with this seemingly simple task, sensing that the right name holds more importance than mere convenience. The ship's bell rings out across Tortuga Harbor, each morning at dawn, its clear bronze voice cutting through the tropical air to mark the beginning of another day. The sound has become part of the mare's routine, her ears pricking forward at the first resonant note. Blackwood notices how she responds to the bell's call, lifting her head with what appears to be recognition and perhaps even anticipation. This particular bell has served the retribution for over 15 years, cast in Bristol and blessed by a priest before its installation. Its surface bears the patina of salt spray and tropical weather, but its voice remains pure and strong. The bell calls the crew to duty, announces arrivals and departures, and marks the passages of time that define shipboard life. On this morning, as the bell's song echoes across the water, Blackwood watches the mare's response with growing understanding. Her entire demeanor changes at the sound, transforming from quiet contentment to alert awareness. She moves to the stable entrance, looking toward the harbor, with eyes bright with intelligence and curiosity. "You like that sound, don't you, girl?" Blackwood murmurs, following her gaze toward the ship. "Reminds you that there's a world beyond these wooden walls." The bell continues its morning call, each note carrying promises of adventure, freedom, and possibility. The mare stamps her hooves softly, a gesture that speaks of eagerness rather than impatience. For the first time since her rescue, she displays the restlessness of a creature ready to engage with life, rather than simply endure it. Gray approaches the stable, drawn by the unusual sight of the mare standing alert at the entrance. She's looking stronger every day, Samuel, almost like a different animal, entirely. Blackwood nods, his weathered hand stroking the mare's neck as the bell's final notes fade across the water. She needs a name, Thomas. Can't keep calling her the mare forever. What about something practical? Storm, perhaps, or Duchess? The suggestion feels wrong somehow, too common for a creature whose spirit has survived such trials. Blackwood continues watching as the mare turns her attention back to him, her eyes holding depths that speak of experiences beyond the ordinary. She deserves a name that honors both her suffering and her remarkable resilience. The ship's bell rings again, this time in response to an approaching vessel. The mare's ears swivel toward the sound immediately, her nostrils flaring as she processes the information carried on the morning breeze. Her reaction suggests familiarity with maritime signals, knowledge that hints at a past more complex than simple farm work. She understands what the bell means, Blackwood realizes aloud. Look at how she responds. That's not the behavior of an ordinary draft horse. Billy Hawkins joins them, carrying the morning ration of oats and fresh water. Maybe she belonged to a ship once. Some captains keep horses aboard for landing operations. The possibility intrigues Blackwood. It would explain her rapid adaptation to shipboard routines and her apparent comfort with maritime sounds. Perhaps her story involves more than simple agricultural labor. The thought that she might have once known the freedom of ocean voyages adds poignancy to her years of abuse and confinement. The bell rings a third time, its voice carrying the rhythm of celebration rather than mere announcement. The mare responds with a soft whinny, the first vocalization she has made since her rescue. The sound carries music of its own, harmonizing with the bronze tones in a way that suggests natural affinity. In that moment, the name comes to him with perfect clarity. Liberty, Blackwood says softly, testing the word on his tongue. Her name is Liberty. The mare turns toward him at the sound, her eyes reflecting understanding that transcends species barriers. The name fits her like a well-made bridle, neither too loose nor too tight, honoring both her past suffering and her future possibility. The ship's bell continues its morning song, welcoming Liberty to her new life with bronze voices that promise freedom, adventure, and the chance to write a different ending to her story. In choosing her name, Blackwood has chosen his own path as well, committing to a future where compassion guides his decisions rather than mere profit. Liberty wickers softly in response to her new name, the sound carrying gratitude and the first stirrings of joy. The first major test of their growing bond comes 3 weeks after Liberty receives her name, when dark clouds gather on the horizon with ominous intent. The storm arrives with the sudden ferocity that characterizes Caribbean weather, transforming a peaceful afternoon into a battle against nature's raw power. Lightning splits the sky in jagged white lines, followed by thunder that rolls across Tortuga like cannon fire. The sound sends Liberty into immediate panic, her hard-won calm shattered by memories of past trauma. She rears in her makeshift stall, eyes rolling white with terror, as the storm's violence awakens every instinct that screams of danger and pain. Blackwood reaches for the storm lantern, hanging near the stable entrance, its brass surface tarnished by salt air but its flame steady and true. This particular lantern has guided him through countless dark nights at sea, its light cutting through fog and rain when navigation depended on seeing obstacles before they destroyed his ship. Now it serves a different but equally vital purpose. The lantern's warm glow pushes back the darkness that seems to terrify Liberty, almost as much as the thunder. Blackwood holds it steady as he approaches her, speaking in the same calm tones his father once used with frightened horses during Devon storms. Easy, Liberty, it's just weather. Nothing that can hurt you here. But Liberty hears more than simple thunder in the storm's roar. Each crack of lightning triggers memories of whips cracking across her back, Every rumble of thunder recalls the harsh voices of men who showed no mercy to a creature too exhausted to work properly. The storm becomes a symphony of past torments, each note perfectly pitched to resurrect her deepest fears. Rain begins falling in heavy drops that quickly become a deluge, drumming against the stable's canvas roof with increasing intensity. Liberty's breathing becomes rapid and shallow, her nostrils flaring as she searches for escape routes that do not exist. The confined space that has felt safe for weeks now seems like a trap, walls closing in as the storm's fury grows. Blackwood sets the lantern on a wooden crate where its light can reach every corner of the shelter. The steady flame creates a circle of warmth and safety in the chaos, its golden glow touching Liberty's chestnut coat and reflecting in her frightened eye. The simple light speaks of human presence, of protection offered against the storm's mindless violence. "I'm not going anywhere," he tells her, settling onto a pile of hay near her stall. "We'll ride this out together." The storm intensifies, bringing wind that howls through the rigging of ships in the harbor and sends loose objects flying through the air like projectiles. Lightning illuminates the stable in stark, momentary brilliance, followed by thunder crashes that seem to shake the very foundations of the earth. With each lightning flash, Liberty flinches, as if struck. Her body trembles continuously now, sweat mixing with the dampness that seeps through their improvised shelter. The storm lantern's flame flickers but holds steady, its light providing the only constant in a world gone mad with wind and rain. Blackwood begins speaking softly, not about the storm or her fears, but about peaceful things. He describes the green Devon countryside of his youth, where rain fell gently on rolling hills and thunder was a distant rumble that brought relief from summer heat rather than terror. His voice becomes an anchor, steady and reliable, while everything else shifts and roars around them. Hours pass in this strange vigil, man and horse waiting out nature's tantrum together. The lantern burns steadily, consuming oil but never wavering in its duty to push back the darkness. Liberty's panic gradually subsides under the combined influence of Blackwood's presence and the light's unwavering comfort. Gradually, she moves closer to where he sits, drawn by the twin beacons of lantern flame and human compassion. Her breathing slows as the storm begins to weaken, thunder moving farther away, and rain settling into a gentler rhythm. The worst has passed, but the memory of shared endurance creates bonds stronger than any forged in calm weather. When morning finally arrives, bright and clean after the storm's cleansing, Liberty stands peacefully beside Blackwood. The lantern still burns, though its light seems pale compared to the dawn sunshine streaming through gaps in their shelter. Both captain and horse have weathered the trial, emerging stronger for having faced their fears together. The storm lantern continues its faithful service, ready for whatever darkness might come. Like the relationship it helped preserve, the light burns steady and true, proof that some flames cannot be extinguished by wind or rain. The treasure map arrives on a humid Tuesday morning, carried by a nervous merchant who claims it fell into his hands through legitimate trade. Blackwood examines the yellowed parchment with practiced skepticism, noting the careful script that marks various Caribbean islands and the detailed notations suggesting a Spanish galleon's final resting place. "Nuestra Señora de Atocha," the merchant explains, his hands trembling slightly as he unfolds the document. "Went down in a hurricane 20 years ago, carrying the annual tribute from Peru. Gold, silver, emeralds, more wealth than most men see in 10 lifetimes. The map surface bears the stains and creases of age, its edges worn soft by countless handlings. Cryptic symbols mark water depths and current patterns, while careful measurements indicate distances between landmarks. Everything about the document suggests authenticity, from the quality of the ink to the Spanish phrases written in period-appropriate script. Gray leans over Blackwood's shoulder, studying the intricate details with the eye of an experienced navigator. "If this is genuine, Samuel, we're looking at the prize of a lifetime, the kind of haul that lets a man retire comfortably." But Blackwood finds himself reluctant to embrace the opportunity with his usual enthusiasm. His morning routine now includes time with Liberty, watching her graze in the small paddock they've constructed behind the stable. Her recovery continues steadily, and their daily interactions have become the highlight of his existence. The location is remote, he observes, tracing the map's coastal markings with his finger. 3 days hard sailing, minimum. Probably a week's work to locate and salvage the wreck properly. The merchant shifts nervously, interpreting Blackwood's hesitation as negotiation tactics. I'm asking only 200 pieces of 8 for the map, a pittance compared to what it could yield. The sum represents a substantial investment, but not beyond the Retribution's current resources. More troubling is the time commitment required for such an expedition. A week away from Tortuga means a week away from liberty, leaving her care to crew members who, while willing, lack his understanding of her particular needs. Billy Hawkins enters the captain's cabin carrying the morning reports. His eyes immediately drawn to the treasure map spread across the table. His youthful excitement is evident as he recognizes the significance of what he's seeing. Is that what I think it is, Captain? Possibly, Blackwood replies, still wrestling with conflicting desires. The question is whether the prize justifies the risks involved. The map seems to pulse with possibility, its faded lines promising adventure and wealth in equal measures. Every marking tells a story of Spanish ambition and natural disaster, of treasure lost and now waiting for bold men to reclaim it. The document represents everything that has driven Blackwood's career as a pirate captain. Yet something has changed in him since Liberty's arrival. The prospect of leaving her, even temporarily, creates anxiety he has not experienced since his Devon childhood. Their morning grooming sessions have become sacred rituals, moments of peace in a life previously defined by constant motion and danger. The merchant grows impatient with Blackwood's deliberation. Other captains have expressed interest, sir. Captain Morgan received word about this map yesterday. If you're not prepared to act quickly, the threat of competition should spur immediate action, but Blackwood finds himself calculating different factors than usual. How long can Liberty maintain her recovery without daily attention? Will the crew understand his reluctance to pursue obvious profit? Can he risk missing this opportunity for the sake of a horse's emotional well-being? Gray senses his captain's internal struggle. The men are ready for action, Samuel. It's been months since our last significant prize. They need something to justify their loyalty. The practical concerns cannot be ignored. A pirate crew requires regular success to maintain discipline and morale. The Retribution's reputation depends on Blackwood's ability to deliver profitable ventures, not rescue operations for dying animals. The map lies before him like a challenge, daring him to choose between the life he has built and the peace he has discovered. Its promise of gold and glory wars with the simple satisfaction of watching Liberty grow stronger each day. The parchment represents his past, while the mare grazing outside his window suggests a different kind of future. We'll take it, he decides finally, producing the required payment. Prepare the ship for immediate departure. The merchant's relief is palpable as he accepts the coins and hands over the map. But as the transaction concludes, Blackwood feels the weight of his decision settling like a stone in his chest. The salvage operation proceeds with remarkable efficiency, the Spanish treasure proving both genuine and accessible. Within 4 days, the Retribution's hold groans under the weight of recovered gold bars, silver coins, and precious stones that glitter like captured starlight. The crew works with enthusiasm, their doubts about their captain's recent behavior dissolving in the face of tangible wealth. Blackwood divides his attention between supervising the operation and thoughts of Liberty waiting back in Tortuga. The mare has never been far from his mind during this expedition, her image providing comfort during the long hours of diving and hauling treasure from the ocean floor. Each recovered chest brings them closer to returning home. As night falls on their final day at the wreck site, the crew celebrates their success with rum and stories of how they'll spend their shares. The mood aboard ship feels festive, reminiscent of the old days when treasure hunting provided simple pleasures, uncomplicated by emotional attachments. Yet Blackwood finds himself counting hours until they can set sail for home. Thomas Gray approaches him as he stands at the bow, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. The first mate carries a cloth-wrapped bundle with unusual care. his expression mixing satisfaction with something approaching concern. The men found this in the captain's personal effects, Gray explains, unwrapping the bundle to reveal an ornate dagger. The weapon's blade gleams silver in the moonlight, its edge sharp enough to split hairs. But it is the handle that captures attention, carved from ebony and inlaid with gold, depicting a coiled serpent whose ruby eyes seem to burn with malevolent intelligence. The craftsmanship speaks of Spanish artistry at its finest. But something about the dagger feels wrong. Its beauty carries an undercurrent of menace, as if the weapon hungers for blood beyond what normal blades require. The ruby eyes catch and reflect light in ways that suggest awareness rather than mere decoration. Magnificent work, Blackwood acknowledges, accepting the weapon for closer examination. The dagger's weight feels perfect in his hand, balanced for either throwing or close combat. Yet holding it produces an uncomfortable sensation, as if the blade carries memories of violence that stain the soul of anyone who wields it. Gray watches his captain's reaction carefully. Beautiful, but there's something about it that makes my skin crawl. The Spanish captain must have valued it highly to keep it in his personal quarters, rather than the main treasure vault. The dagger's serpent design winds around the handle in intricate coils, each scale carved with microscopic precision. The ruby eyes seem to follow movement, creating the illusion of a living creature frozen in gold and ebony. Spanish inscriptions along the blade's fuller translate to blessings for swift death and curses upon enemies, religious invocations mixed with darker purpose. Add it to the treasure inventory, Blackwood decides, though he continues holding the weapon longer than necessary. Something about the dagger compels attention, demanding respect even as it inspires unease. The men deserve to know the full value of what we've recovered. As he hands the blade back to Gray, their fingers brush briefly. In that instant, Blackwood notices his first mate's grip lingering on the weapon, his eyes reflecting the ruby gleam of the serpent's gaze. The moment passes quickly but leaves an impression of connection between man and blade that seems almost supernatural. The celebration continues around them, crew members sharing tales of the fortunes they'll build with their shares of the treasure. But the dagger's presence seems to cast shadows, even in the midst of joy, its malevolent beauty a reminder that some prizes carry prices beyond their apparent worth. Billy Hawkins approaches with questions about navigation for the return journey, eager to practice the skills he's been learning. As Blackwood provides instruction, he notices Gray in his peripheral vision, still examining the dagger with fascination that borders on obsession. "Thomas," he calls out, interrupting his first mate's study of the weapon, "secure that with the rest of the treasure. We sail at first light." Gray nods, but his reluctance to release the dagger is evident. The blade disappears into its cloth wrapping, but the impression of those ruby eyes seems to linger in the night air. Something has awakened aboard the Retribution, something that feeds on ambition and grows stronger in darkness. The stars wheel overhead as the crew settles into sleep, dreams filled with visions of wealth and freedom. But in the treasure hold below, wrapped in simple cloth, the serpent dagger waits with patience born of centuries, its ruby eyes gleaming in the darkness as it contemplates the corruption of loyal hearts. Tomorrow they will sail for home, carrying more than gold in their hold. Word travels fast in pirate circles, and news of the Retribution's treasure haul reaches eager ears within days of their return to Tortuga. In the smoky taverns and shadowy docks, where dangerous men gather to plan their next ventures, conversations turn inevitably to Captain Blackwood's recent success, and more intriguingly, his apparent weakness. Captain Marcus Irontooth Rodriguez adjusts his spyglass with practiced precision, studying the Retribution from his own ship, anchored across the harbor. The instrument's brass surface bears the scratches and dents of countless campaigns, its lenses ground to perfection for spotting prey at maximum distance. Through its magnifying power, he can observe the daily routines that have made Blackwood predictable. Every morning at dawn, Rodriguez murmurs to his lieutenant, Diego Santos, "The great Captain Blackwood tends to his horse like a nursemaid. 20 years I've known that man, and never seen him show weakness until now." The spyglass reveals details that would be invisible to the naked eye, Blackwood's gentle movements as he grooms Liberty, the obvious care he takes with her feeding, the protective way he positions himself between the mare and any approaching strangers. To experienced predators, these behaviors signal vulnerability that can be exploited. Santos nods, understanding the implications immediately. A man who cares for something becomes a man who can be controlled, threaten what he loves, and even the most dangerous captain becomes manageable. Other pirate leaders have reached similar conclusions. Captain Elena Red Sarah Morrison watches from her own vantage point, her spyglass trained on the makeshift stable where Blackwood spends his morning. Her reputation for cruelty makes her particularly dangerous when sensing weakness in rivals. "He's gone soft," she tells her crew, lowering the telescope with satisfaction. All those years of building his reputation, and he throws it away for a broken-down nag. Pathetic. The spyglass passes between various hands as different crews take turns studying their target. Each observer reaches the same conclusion. Samuel Blackwood's attachment to the horse represents an opportunity that must be seized before he recovers his senses or increases his defenses. Captain Bartholomew Black Bart Thorne, eldest of the pirate brotherhood, holds the spyglass with hands weathered by decades of violence. His reputation for strategic thinking makes his observations particularly valuable to the coalition forming against Blackwood. "The horse is leverage," he explains to the gathering of captains in the back room of the Tortuga Inn. "We don't need to defeat Blackwood in open battle. We simply need to threaten what he values most." Through the spyglass's magnification, they can see Liberty's remarkable recovery, her coat gleaming with health and her movements displaying the grace of a well-bred horse. The sight only reinforces their belief that Blackwood has invested too much emotion in an asset that makes him vulnerable to manipulation. The telescope reveals other useful intelligence: the daily routines of Blackwood's crew, the defensive positions around the stable, the times when the captain is most isolated and therefore most susceptible to attack. Every detail observed through the lens becomes ammunition for the conspiracy growing against him. 3 ships should be sufficient, Rodriguez calculates, sweeping the spyglass across the harbor to study sightlines and escape routes. "Coordinate our approach to trap him in the bay, threaten the horse, and he'll surrender without firing a shot." The instrument passes to Morrison, who uses it to study the Retribution's armament and crew positions. Her tactical mind catalogues weaknesses that can be exploited when the time comes for action. The spyglass transforms observation into planning, surveillance into strategy. "When do we move?" Santos asks, eager for action that promises both profit and revenge against a captain whose success has made him targets of envy. Thorne reclaims the spyglass, studying Blackwood's position one final time before making his decision. The magnified view shows the pirate captain in his moment of greatest vulnerability, kneeling beside Liberty as he checks her hooves for stones. "Tomorrow night," he decides. "New moon provides maximum darkness for our approach. By dawn, either Blackwood surrenders his treasure and his ship, or he watches his precious horse die slowly." The spyglass folds closed with a snap that sounds like a trap springing shut. The coalition of enemies has seen enough, learned enough, planned enough. Tomorrow will test whether Samuel Blackwood's newfound capacity for love makes him stronger or fatally weak. In the distance, unaware of the surveillance, Blackwood continues his morning routine with Liberty, their peaceful interaction observed through hostile eyes that see only opportunity where others might recognize something beautiful. The attack comes at dawn, precisely when Blackwood is most vulnerable. 3 ships emerge from the morning mist, flying false flags that display the colors of friendly vessels seeking safe harbor. The deception works perfectly until the last moment, when cannon ports swing open and hostile crews reveal their true intentions. The false flag flutters from Captain Rodriguez's mainmast, its bright colors a mockery of the peaceful intentions it pretends to represent. The cloth bears the crossed swords and crown of the Royal Navy, an identity stolen to provide cover for the approaching assault. Only when the trap springs does the true pirate standard emerge, black silk emblazoned with a skull pierced by 3 daggers. Blackwood recognizes the ruse immediately, but too late to prevent the enemy ships from achieving their tactical positions. The Retribution sits at anchor, her crew scattered across Tortuga for shore leave, leaving her defensively weak at the crucial moment. The false flag has done its work, lulling potential defenders into complacency. All hands to battle stations. Blackwood roars, but only half his men remain aboard to answer the call. Those present scramble to prepare the ship for combat, loading cannons and readying weapons with desperate efficiency. The morning air fills with the metallic sounds of preparation for violence. Liberty senses the danger immediately, her ears flattening against her head as the hostile ships close distance. The mare's newfound trust in her surroundings wavers as cannon smoke begins drifting across the harbor. Her instincts, sharpened by years of surviving brutality, recognize the approach of violence even before the first shots are fired. Gray emerges from below deck, his face flushed with excitement that seems inappropriate for their desperate circumstances. The serpent Ager hangs at his belt, its ruby eyes catching the morning light as he moves with predatory grace toward his captain. Something fundamental has changed in the first mate's demeanor since handling the cursed blade. "Samuel," Gray calls out, his voice carrying strange harmonics that make Blackwood's skin crawl. "Perhaps it's time to consider surrender. These odds aren't in our favor." The suggestion strikes Blackwood as entirely unlike his longtime friend and trusted officer. Gray has never counseled retreat in the face of superior numbers, preferring to fight against impossible odds rather than yield without battle. The serpent dagger pulses at his belt, its malevolent influence apparent in his changed behavior. Captain Morrison's ship, the Crimson Revenge, closes to speaking distance. Her voice carries clearly across the water, amplified by a brass-speaking trumpet that transforms her words into instruments of intimidation. "Captain Blackwood, you're surrounded and outgunned. Surrender your treasure and your ship, or watch your precious horse die slowly." The threat strikes like a physical blow, confirming Blackwood's worst fears about the enemy's intelligence and intentions. They have studied his weaknesses carefully, identifying liberty as the lever that might force his capitulation. The false flag that brought them close enough to spring their trap was merely the first deception in a carefully orchestrated plan. Liberty stamps nervously in her paddock, sensing the tension that crackles through the air like electricity before a storm. Her recovery has made her more sensitive to emotional currents around her, and the mixture of fear, anger, and determination emanating from the humans creates a cocktail of anxiety that threatens to trigger her old terrors. Blackwood moves to the rail, studying the enemy positions with tactical precision, despite the emotions raging in his chest. 3 ships, arranged in a triangle pattern, each armed with enough firepower to reduce the retribution to splinters. Fighting seems hopeless, but surrender means losing everything that matters to him. "You have 1 minute to decide, Blackwood," Morrison shouts through her trumpet. "After that, we start with the horse." The false flag snaps in the morning breeze above her ship, its deceptive colors a reminder that nothing in this confrontation is as it first appeared. The enemy has used lies to position themselves for maximum advantage, and now they demand submission under threat of cruelty to an innocent creature. Gray steps closer, his hand resting on the serpent dagger's handle. The weapon seems to whisper encouragement in his ear, feeding his growing ambition with visions of power and wealth that could be his if he chooses the winning side in this confrontation. "They're right about the odds, Samuel. Sometimes wisdom means knowing when to fold." The words carry undertones of betrayal that chill Blackwood's blood. His most trusted friend speaks with the voice of an enemy, influenced by forces beyond normal human ambition. The false flag above Morrison's ship waves like a banner of deception, reminding him that appearances can no longer be trusted. The battle erupts with the fury of a tropical hurricane, cannon fire thundering across Tortuga harbor as 3 enemy ships pour their fury into the trapped retribution. Blackwood draws his father's cutlass, the familiar weight of the blade offering comfort even in this desperate hour. The weapon has served 3 generations of his family, its steel forged in Sheffield and tempered by decades of honest use. The cutlass bears the maker's mark near its crossguard, a simple rose that identifies the smith who crafted it with pride over 40 years ago. Edmund Blackwood carried this blade through his service in His Majesty's Navy, before passing it to his son along with lessons about honor and duty that shaped the man Samuel became. Now it feels like the last link to everything noble in his heritage. Smoke fills the air as the Retribution's cannons answer the enemy bombardment, her reduced crew working with desperate efficiency to return fire against overwhelming odds. Billy Hawkins loads powder with shaking hands while veteran sailors sight their targets through the chaos. Each shot from their guns is precious, ammunition that must count if they hope to survive. The cutlass slides from its sheath with the whisper of steel that has accompanied Blackwood through countless battles. Its edge gleams with the patina of careful maintenance, the blade honed to razor sharpness, each morning as part of his ritual preparations. The weapon feels alive in his grip, eager to defend what matters most. Gray approaches through the smoke, the serpent dagger bright in his hand as he moves with predatory intent. The cursed blade has completed its corruption of the first mate, transforming 20 years of friendship into murderous ambition. His eyes reflect the ruby gleam of the weapon's serpentine decoration, human consciousness replaced by something hungry and malevolent. "Nothing personal, Samuel," Gray says, raising the ornate dagger. "But some opportunities are too valuable to ignore." The two blades meet in a clash of steel that rings across the harbor, despite the cannon fire surrounding them. Blackwood's honest cutlass struggles against the supernatural malevolence of the Spanish weapon, each impact sending shockwaves through both men's arms. The serpent dagger fights with more than Gray's strength behind it, drawing power from dark sources that make it unnaturally swift and deadly. Liberty's terrified whinnying cuts through the battle noise as cannonballs splash in the water near her paddock. The mare rears against her restraints, panic overriding the months of patient trust-building that have marked her recovery. The sound of her distress gives Blackwood strength even as Gray's enhanced abilities push him back across the deck. "She'll die badly if you don't surrender," Gray taunts, the serpent dagger weaving patterns in the air that seem to hypnotize onlookers. These captains know how to make suffering last for hours. The threat ignites fury in Blackwood's chest, transforming defensive desperation into aggressive determination. His father's cutlass responds to this emotional surge, its honest steel finding new speed and precision as it deflects the cursed blade's attacks. The Rosemaker's mark seems to glow with inner light, righteousness meeting corruption in direct confrontation. Around them, the battle rages with increasing intensity. Morrison's crew attempts to board the Retribution, while Rodriguez's cannons pound her hull from the opposite side. The ship's defenders fight with the courage of cornered animals, knowing that surrender means death or slavery for them all. Billy Hawkins proves his worth by maintaining steady cannon fire. Despite his youth and inexperience, his shots finding their marks with accuracy that surprises veteran gunners. Other crew members rally around their captain's example, drawing inspiration from his refusal to yield, despite impossible odds. The cutlass finds its opening as Gray overextends his attack, the serpent dagger's arrogance creating the vulnerability that honest steel exploits. Blackwood's blade slides past the ornate weapon's guard, its point finding the gap between ribs that leads directly to the heart. The strike is clean and quick, ending 20 years of friendship with surgical precision. Gray's eyes clear in the moment before death, the serpent dagger's influence fading as his life ebbs away. "Samuel," he whispers, recognition returning. "I'm sorry." The blade. It whispered such beautiful lies. The cursed weapon falls from nerveless fingers, its ruby eyes dimming as it loses contact with living flesh. The serpent dagger's power requires a willing host, and death severs that connection completely. It lies motionless on the blood-stained deck, once again merely an ornate antique rather than an instrument of corruption. Blackwood's cutlass drips with his oldest friend's blood, the honest blade stained by necessity rather than malice. The rose mark near its guard seems to mourn the life it was forced to take, even as it prepares for the battles yet to come. Victory seems within reach as the enemy ships begin to withdraw, their hulls damaged and their crews bloodied by the Retribution's fierce resistance. Morrison's vessel lists heavily to starboard, taking on water through holes punched by accurate cannon fire. Rodriguez signals retreat as his own ship suffers similar damage, the false flag finally lowered in acknowledgement of defeat. The triumph turns to horror as a stray cannonball, fired in the enemy's final salvo, crashes through the stable where Liberty has weathered the battle in growing panic. The sound of splintering wood mingles with her scream of pain, a cry that cuts through Blackwood's soul like a blade sharper than any steel. He rushes to her side, finding her trapped beneath heavy timber that has crushed her left foreleg. Blood pools beneath the wreckage, dark against the straw that has cushioned her recovery for so many weeks. Her eyes, bright with intelligence and hard-won trust, now reflect agony and the terrible understanding that comes to creatures who sense their own mortality. The medallion of Christopher swings from a chain around Blackwood's neck, its silver surface catching the smoky light that filters through the destroyed stable. This small token has protected him through countless voyages, a gift from his mother before he first went to sea as a frightened boy. The patron saint of travelers watches over those who journey through dangerous places, offering divine protection when human strength fails. "Stay with me, Liberty," Blackwood whispers, kneeling in the debris beside his wounded companion. His hands shake as he examines the damage, recognizing injuries that no amount of care can heal. The timber has shattered bone and torn muscle beyond any surgeon's ability to repair, yet her eyes still hold trust in him to make everything right. Billy Hawkins appears with the ship's medical kit, his young face pale with understanding of what they face. "Captain, I've sent for the island's horse doctor, but he's with wounded men from the other ships." The cruel irony strikes Blackwood like a physical blow. Liberty survived years of abuse, malnutrition and despair, only to be mortally wounded at the moment of their greatest triumph. The enemy's defeat means nothing if the price is her life, all their battles reduced to hollow victory by this single tragedy. She tries to rise, her spirit unbroken despite the terrible damage to her body. The effort sends fresh waves of pain through her frame, manifested in soft whimpers that tear at Blackwood's heart more effectively than any enemy blade. Her struggle embodies the courage that has carried her through every trial, refusing to surrender even when hope seems impossible. The St. Christopher medallion grows warm against his chest, the silver seeming to pulse with inner heat as he faces the most difficult decision of his life. Legend claims the saint protects travelers on their final journey as well as their earthly wanderings, guiding souls safely to their ultimate destination when earthly roads reach their end. The treasure, Millie suggests desperately. We could buy the finest veterinarians in the Caribbean, spare no expense for her care. But Blackwood's experienced eye sees what the young man's optimism cannot accept. Liberty's injuries are beyond healing by any earthly means. The kindest act he can offer is to spare her prolonged suffering, though the choice threatens to destroy something precious within himself. He draws his pistol with trembling hands, the weight of the weapon feeling heavier than any treasure chest they have recovered. The St. Christopher medallion catches the light as he moves, its protective blessing extending to this final act of mercy. Sometimes love demands the courage to let go rather than the strength to hold on. Liberty's eyes meet his with perfect understanding, her pain-clouded gaze reflecting forgiveness for what he must do. She has learned to trust him completely, and that trust extends even to this ultimate kindness. Her head settles against his knee, accepting his protection one last time. The medallion grows warmer still, its silver surface almost hot against his skin, as if the saint himself acknowledges the sanctity of this mount. Some journeys end at destinations different from those originally intended, but divine protection ensures safe passage regardless of the final harbor. "You gave me back something I thought was lost forever," Blackwood whispers, his voice breaking with grief. "Thank you for that gift." The pistol's report echoes across Tortuga Harbor, silencing the last of the battle sounds. Liberty's suffering ends instantly, her spirit freed to gallop across eternal pastures where no whip will ever touch her flanks again. The St. Christopher medallion settles against Blackwood's chest, its protective warmth a reminder that some acts of love transcend understanding. The aftermath of battle leaves Tortuga Harbor littered with debris and echoing with the groans of wounded men. But for Blackwood, the world has contracted to the small patch of earth where liberty rests in eternal peace. He sits beside her still form for hours, his weathered hands stroking her neck as if his touch might somehow call her spirit back from whatever distant shore it now explores. Billy Hawkins approaches hesitantly, carrying the ship's compass in his trembling hands. The instrument's brass surface catches the afternoon light, its needle pointing steadily toward magnetic north, despite the chaos surrounding them. This particular compass has guided the Retribution through countless voyages, its rose design showing all 32 points of direction, with meticulous precision. "Captain," Billy says softly, extending the compass toward his grief-stricken leader. "The men are asking what course we should set. Some of the crew from the other ships want to join us, and there's talk of hunting down Morrison and Rodriguez for revenge." The compass rose gleams in the young man's palm, its intricate markings representing infinite possibilities for a ship and crew ready to sail in any direction their captain chooses. Each point on the rose offers a different path. North toward colonial ports where civilization imposes its rules, south to Spanish territories ripe for raiding, east toward European markets hungry for Caribbean plunder, or west into unexplored waters where new adventures await. Blackwood accepts the compass, studying its familiar face with eyes that see more than simple navigation. The instrument has served him faithfully for 15 years, its needle never failing to find true north regardless of storms, battles, or the magnetic interference of buried treasure. Now its steady pointer seems to offer guidance for choices that extend far beyond mere sailing directions. "They want blood for what happened here," Billy continues, his voice carrying the barely controlled anger of youth confronting injustice. "Liberty died because of their greed. Their crew thinks we should make them pay." The compass needle quivers slightly in Blackwood's unsteady grip, but quickly settles back to its true bearing. The instrument's unwavering reliability offers silent wisdom. When everything else shifts and changes, some constants remain steady enough to guide travelers through uncertainty toward whatever destination they truly seek. Around them, the surviving crew members work to repair damage and tend wounded shipmates, their movements carrying the efficient purposefulness of men who have faced death and emerged victorious. Yet their eyes frequently turn toward their captain, seeking direction that will give meaning to their survival and purpose to their continued existence. The compass rose shows paths in every direction, but Blackwood finds himself studying the points that lead away from traditional pirate hunting grounds. Liberty's death has awakened something in him that makes the old ways seem hollow and ultimately meaningless. Gold and silver cannot purchase what truly matters, and revenge offers no comfort to replace what has been lost. "There are settlements to the west," he says finally, his voice carrying new resolve despite its underlying grief. "Places where honest work still earns honest wages, where a ship and crew might find purpose beyond taking from others." Billy's eyes widen with surprise. "You're talking about giving up piracy." "But Captain, we just defeated 3 enemy ships. Our reputation has never been stronger." The compass needle remains steady as Blackwood considers the young man's words. Reputation built on violence and theft feels less important now than the possibility of building something worthwhile with the time remaining to him. Liberty's courage in facing suffering and death has shown him that some values transcend survival itself. "What good is a reputation for cruelty, Billy? Liberty taught me something I'd forgotten. Strength shows itself through protection, not destruction." The compass rose offers its silent counsel, each direction representing choices that will determine not just where they sail, but who they become in the sailing. The instrument makes no moral judgments, simply provides accurate information that allows navigators to choose their own course based on their true desires rather than external pressures. Other crew members gather around as word spreads of their captain's unprecedented decision. The compass passes from hand to hand, each man studying its face as if the instrument might reveal his own destiny among its precisely marked directions. Some nod with understanding, recognizing the wisdom in choosing growth over revenge. Others struggle with the concept of abandoning everything they have known. The compass returns to Blackwood's hands, its weight familiar and comforting, despite the magnitude of the decision it represents. The needle points steadily north, offering guidance without judgment toward whatever new horizon awaits a captain and crew ready to sail beyond the boundaries of their former lives. 5 years have passed since that terrible day in Tortuga Harbor, and Captain Samuel Blackwood sits in the study of his coastal home in New Providence, writing in the leather-bound journal that has become his most treasured possession. The book's pages hold the complete story of his transformation from feared pirate to respected merchant, captain, every word carefully inscribed in his own hand. The journal's cover bears the weathered patina of constant use, its brown leather soft and supple from years of handling. Inside, hundreds of pages chronicle not just events, but the evolution of a man's understanding of what truly matters in life. The writing began as simple record-keeping, but evolved into something approaching confession, redemption sought through honest accounting of past choices and their consequences. Outside his window, the morning sun illuminates a small paddock where 2 young horses graze peacefully in grass, still wet with Caribbean dew. These animals represent the culmination of everything Liberty taught him about courage, patience, and the power of gentle care to heal even the deepest wounds. Their presence brings daily comfort, living reminders that some gifts transcend death itself. The journal's current entry describes yesterday's successful trading voyage to Barbados, where his merchantman New Liberty delivered medical supplies to settlements ravaged by fever. The profits were modest compared to his pirate days, but the grateful tears of mothers whose children would live because of those medicines provided wealth beyond any treasure chest. Billy Hawkins, now his first mate and partner in their legitimate trading enterprise, appears in the doorway carrying morning coffee and the ship's manifests for their next voyage. The young man has grown into a capable leader whose moral compass never wavers from the true north of doing what is right rather than what is profitable. The crew is ready to sail whenever you give the word, Captain, Billy reports, setting down the steaming cup beside the open journal. That shipment of tools and building supplies won't deliver itself to the hurricane victims in Jamaica. Blackwood nods, adding a final sentence to his morning's writing before closing the journal carefully. The book contains not just his story but lessons learned through suffering that might guide others, seeking their own redemption. Each page represents another step away from the man who once took what he wanted towards someone who gives what others need. The transformation was not immediate or simple. Many of his former crew struggled with the transition from piracy to honest commerce, some choosing to seek other captains who still followed the old ways. But those who remained discovered satisfaction in work that built rather than destroyed, in voyages that brought relief instead of terror to the ports they visited. The journal is nearly full, Blackwood observes, running his fingers over the leather cover that has absorbed years of his hopes, regrets, and hard-won wisdom. Time to start thinking about what comes next. Billy's eyes brighten with understanding. You're thinking of publishing it, letting other men read about Liberty and what she taught you? The idea has grown steadily in Blackwood's mind as the pages accumulated. His story might serve as lighthouse for others lost in moral storms, showing that redemption remains possible even for those who have sailed farthest from righteousness. Liberty's courage deserves to be remembered not just by him, but by anyone who needs to believe that broken spirits can heal. The journal holds more than personal history. It contains universal truth about the power of love to transform even the hardest hearts. The mare, who trusted despite betrayal, who found strength despite suffering, who chose hope despite despair, represents something larger than her individual story. She embodies the possibility that exists within everyone to rise above circumstances and become something better. Through the window, the young horses lift their heads as if sensing his attention, their eyes bright with the contentment that comes from knowing safety and care. They will never experience the cruelty that broke Liberty's body, but could not destroy her spirit. In their peaceful existence lies the ultimate victory over those who believe strength comes through causing pain. Blackwood opens the journal one final time, adding a dedication he has been contemplating for months. For Liberty, who taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to do what is right despite being afraid. May her story remind all who read it that redemption remains within reach of anyone willing to choose love over fear. The leather journal closes with a soft whisper, its pages heavy with truth that transformed one man's life and might yet touch the hearts of others, seeking their own path home.